commission cannot act on these items raised during the public communications, but may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed, request clarification, or refer the item to staff. At this time, I will open this item up for the public comment. Do we have any members of the public wishing to comment on items that are not on the agenda?
We do. I think we have 2 members of the public who would like to provide comments.
Great. If you'd come up and provide your card, and then you have 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. When I came here,
Could you move the microphone down and speak into it, please?
it's the microphone?
Put
Okay.
it close.
I don't know if it's too late for me to make comments because it's about those pumps on the road and I just now talked to Mr. Redmond and he said they already decided. Can I change your mind? If I say something, why they shouldn't be on the road?
Go ahead and tell
Okay.
us your comment.
Okay, my comment is that I drive on that road like 3 times a week. And it's 5 bumps to go there, 5 bumps to go back. Every bump hurts my back. I'm trying to avoid those bumps. And, and I see a lot of people do the same thing. They don't go over bumps, they kind of with one wheel try, but it doesn't help. It exacerbates, your arthritis, your back problems. A lot of people do that. That's one thing. Another thing, it's not good for tires, it's not good for cars. Also, I rode on that road just yesterday, and there was a big truck behind me, and I slowed down because I have to slow down up to down to 5 miles per hour to go over that bump because it's really hard on my back. And truck behind me, he didn't slow down. He just came, and he came so close, I was like second away from him being hurt. And I see a lot of people, half I would say, slow down, and half of them go really straight at 25 miles per hour. So also, somebody mentioned that ambulances will have problem on this road with these bumps. If person is injured, and it's, how would they go? And somebody also mentioned that fumes, and there is more fumes and noise from bumps and from constant acceleration and constant slowing down, almost to a stop to go in that. Oh, sorry. So I know I'm too late, but I didn't know anything about this. I was thinking about it, didn't know who to talk to. So, and Mr. Redmond told me that.
Thank you. This was very helpful, and staff.
Yes. Okay.
And staff has your name and your contact, and.
Yeah, that's what I wrote. Okay.
Thank you.
So, I didn't say, do I have a chance to change anything? They were not done permanently because it would be the same thing.
Thank you.
Only worse.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello. And thank you for your time. I use this Homestead Street not very often, maybe a couple times a week, but I have noticed these bumps. They're very big, and it's really affect my back. Even I slow down, I almost stop before bump, but still it jerks and it affect my back. Not to mention that, it's also not good for the car, which wears tire off and the parts underneath the car. Besides, I noticed that not everybody slows down. Some big trucks, they don't stop at all. They just drive through because they're big trucks. They drive through these bumps, that's all. And plus, braking frequently cause more pollution, as you know, of course. This summer, I was on vacation in Hawaii, and I lived on the 3rd floor. And windows were closed all the time because of the heat. And just beneath on the street there was a bump. Can you imagine? It was a disaster because of noise. The noise was very significant because of one bump, and we lived on the 3rd floor. Can you imagine what noise will be for people, for residents? It will be pretty significant noise. You probably want to consider this as well. But the thing is, the most important is the health, because all these jerks, it affect spine, it affect spine disc, and affects joints. So it's not as innocent as somebody might think. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Okay, that's my card.
Is that the end of the public comment?
I'm seeing no other public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the November 21st, 2024 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion for approval of the meeting minutes from November 21st, 2024?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Would the secretary please call the roll?
Student Chair Kursich,
Aye.
Commissioner Ash,
Aye.
Commissioner Krelling,
Aye.
Commissioner Patch,
Abstain.
Vice Chair Cagle,
Aye.
Chair Reese.
Aye. Okay. Next on the agenda is an item for commission consideration, application for Transportation Development Act, Article 3, funds for the trail crossing improvements. At this time, I invite staff to provide their presentation.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Rashad Cover. I am Assistant Engineer with the CIP Department, and today we are seeking a recommendation to proceed with submitting trail crossing improvement project for grant funding. Dice with this guy here. I'll work with this. This should work here. All right. And a little background on the grant we're applying for. We're applying for the TDA grant, Transportation Development Act. It's distributed by MTC for pedestrian and bicycle projects. These funds are allocated annually on a per capita basis to Contra Costa County and its incorporated cities. Each city may submit one project, and typically the city of Walnut Creek submits a project for this. We submitted last year, the year before as well, and this year city staff explored locations with the potential for vehicle and pedestrian/cyclist conflicts, and we determined a trail crossing improvement project will not only be competitive for the grant, but great for the citizens of Walnut Creek. So just a little background on what we are proposing for this project. We're focusing on 4 trail crossings, mostly in the Larkey area. We would like to install 444 high visibility pavement markings. It's a mouthful, and here is an example of the 444 crossing. This striping gets its name from the widths of the actual stripes. We have 2 4-foot white stripes on the outer edges, and in the center we have a 4-foot wide green pavement marking. And we also propose installing rapid flashing beacons with passive detection. And we have shown here a typical rapid flashing beacon. And a little background on our locations. My next slide will go into detail on the areas of improvements. We've received citizen requests for improvements at these crossings. They were selected due to their proximity to schools, to parks. The Larky area has Contra Costa Christian, Larky Parks in the area. We have Lindsay Wildlife, and also one of the locations provides access to the greater county trail network. A little more about the 444 striping. It's consistent with other crossings throughout the city. In the previous slide, we had Wiggett Lane, and this striping helps drivers locate the crosswalk. And rapid flashing beacons are a proven countermeasure to increase driver yielding behavior. It improves the visibility of trail users crossing the road. And more specifically, passive detection ensures rapid flashing beacon activation. A cyclist or a pedestrian may not always press the button approaching the crossing. However, with passive detections, it will flash, whether a button is pressed or not. Moreover, extended flash times are to be had if a person or a cyclist is detected in the crosswalk. So as I mentioned, this striping treatment is consistent with other locations throughout the city. We have the Contra Costa Canal Trail crossing at Bancroft Road, Ignacio Canal Trail crossing at Los Lomas Way, at Meander Drive, at Cheyenne Drive, and not shown here is the Ignacio Canal Trail crossing at Wiggett. So we have this striping on both sides of Wiggett. We propose improvements on the Briones to Mount Diablo Regional Trail crossing at San Luis Road. As you can see, this location already has a rapid flashing beacon. However, we propose installing passive detection and striping improvements. The crossing at Larky Lane will receive striping improvements as well as a rapid flashing beacon. Same for Buena Vista Avenue and Jones Road, which provides access to the greater county trail network. Costs. We estimate this project costing $230,000 with $180,000 for construction costs. That's labor and materials, and the last $50,000 for soft costs, including design, contingency, administration, and inspection. Based on previous submissions, we believe that $100,000 is appropriate amount to request for this grant, given the scope of work and previous submissions. Currently, this project is fully funded through traffic impact fees. However, if we receive this grant, this will free up money for other transportation projects. And today, we request of the Commission to recommend to the City Council for staff to apply for TDA 3 grant fundings and submit the Trail Crossing Improvements Project. And with that, I have my contact information on the slide and open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commission, do we have questions? Starting with Commissioner Ash, and we'll just come down.
Yeah, thank you. First question is just how did you decide these? They all make sense to me, but just how did you decide these versus other areas? Do you have a second tier list of targets you want to do the following year?
At the moment, we don't have a second tier. However, we plan to improve these. We plan to implement these striping improvements at crossings throughout the city. The county has done improvements on the Iron Horse Trail, and we are making our way to be consistent with crossings throughout the city and county.
Thanks. And from an engineering perspective, how, what happens if, like, where do you get power from? Because some of these places on the trails, I don't know that there's power. There, maybe there is. I don't know.
These are solar power systems. They have self-contained power sources. There's a solar panel and a battery pack sufficient for use.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Good evening. Thank you for the presentation. Just a few questions. One's more of a curiosity. On the passive detection, how fast does that trigger? Because I'm thinking about like a bicycle kind of barreling through the crosswalk. How fast will that trigger?
That's a good question that I don't have the answer to. However, I can look into it and provide to you at a later.
Thank you. That'd be great. On the and I may have misheard, and if I do, I apologize. On the presentation, I thought you mentioned Contra Costa Trail and Bancroft, but I don't see that on this list.
That was a previous one.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Got it. And then my other question is, are these grants capped at 100,000? Because I was just looking at it, wondering why don't we ask for the 230,000 and then we can take all that other traffic impact fee money and put it to something else?
In an ideal situation, the grant would fully fund the project. However, based on our previous experiences, we've submitted projects of similar scale, and we've requested upwards of 120 grand in the past and received only 80, for example. So given the scope of project, we feel that this is appropriate. However, city staff, we can look into requesting more if you would like us to.
I just kind of think, because I don't know if there's limits to these grants, the size. If we can get more money, let's go after it. Worst they can do is say no, right?
Worst they can do is say
Yeah.
no.
Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Similarly, the detection, especially on some of the trails where you'll have kids who tend to be, I would say, go fast because they find it enjoyable, kind of little daredevil type situation. How far is the detection set back so that, like, will it go off before they enter to the crosswalk, or is it just as they enter the street?
They will be detected approaching the crosswalk.
Okay.
However, that will be finalized during construction, the specifics of how far back. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then I'm familiar with some of these spots, and there are bushes that also hide the trail crossing. From the car perspective, is trimming bushes going to be part of that to ease that visibility issue?
Yes, staff can look at that during the time of construction to make sure that all signs and rapid flashing beacons are visible, as well as sight lines for pedestrians.
Great. And then my last question is specifically about the Jones Road one, because that is a unincorporated Walnut Creek line. So just curious if you're going to address that in the application process, and hopefully that would improve the chances of getting money from the county since they own part of it.
Not specifically in the application, however, it can be mentioned in our interview.
Thank you.
Before we go to Vice Chair Cagle, student member Kirsch, do you have some questions?
I was just wondering how long it would take to complete these projects.
Oh, that's a good question. Uh, I would say an appropriate amount of time. This would be a 20 to 30 working day project. However, I believe that construction can be done sooner than that. However, out of respect to our contractors, we understand that, things may come up during construction, and I think 20 to 30 days is appropriate for this type of work.
Okay. Vice Chair?
Yes. I was wondering if you have data on what types of users use these trails. I know that's probably hard to obtain, but I'd be curious to see what that is.
I don't specifically, Secretary, do we?
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to get counts. They do have some trail counters on the Iron Horse Trail, so we kind of so the East Bay Regional Parks knows some numbers. We do have access to Strava Metro, which is a segment of the users using the trail, right? More of that tracking workout kind of type user, but we don't have any like demographic survey, that kind of actual trail user for all the users.
Okay. Thank you. And post-project, would there be an educational opportunity for users? For instance, to educate the users of the trail, or maybe have some sort of, temporary signage or something that as you approach, it may automatically sense you, or you can use the call thing or whatever. I mean, is there an educational opportunity for users so they can be smarter on the trail?
Definitely. We can explore that, possibly posting signs to notify the public of the change of operation. Staff, we will take that into consideration.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. On one of the slides, you had indicated, and maybe I misunderstood it, but you had indicated that if there is a pedestrian in the crosswalk, that the system will be designed to extend the flashing lights longer than if the pedestrian leaves the crosswalk. Could you explain that?
Yeah. So the pedestrians, to my knowledge, are detected via, I believe, they're microwaves, and depending on the aim of the detector, if a pedestrian is in, let's say, line of sight of the detection device, the rapid flashing beacon will be actuated. So pending aim of our detector, if the pedestrian is in the crosswalk and the detector picks up the pedestrian, the rapid flashing beacon will actuate and stay actuated while the pedestrian is within range of our detector.
Thank you. And kind of getting at the question that Commissioner Krelling asked, is on the grant funding, if you apply for the full amount, is there a chance that you might not win it, but if you apply for less, there's a chance that you would win it? Is that a decision that they make, or do they partially fund applications?
From what I've seen on previous distributions, no project is fully funded through this grant, and it's typically a partial funding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I will open the item for public comment. Do we have any members of the public wishing to provide public comment on this agenda item?
We have no members of the public waiting to provide comments.
Okay. At this time, are there any commissioner comments? And I'm going to go ahead and start with Commissioner Ash again and follow the same process.
I'm good. This makes sense. So I appreciate you coming and putting this together.
I'm a frequent traveler because my office is on Jones and Oak. So I'm a frequent traveler of the Contra Costa Trail crossing at Jones Road. And I think this is, I know that that trail is there, so I slow down just because I don't know who's going to fly through. But I think this is a great thing, especially for people driving down Jones, maybe speeding, and they have no idea that trail crossing's there. And I know the flashing lights definitely grab the attention. So I would assume the same argument would apply to all the others, but I'm just happen to be particularly familiar with the one I'm talking about. So I think it's great use of resources to do this.
I'm also really excited to see the Jones Road intersection on this list because it's terrifying, like really terrifying, both to drive and to use. So kudos on including that, and I'm sure the other three are also really important. I would encourage maybe considering asking for a little bit more, just because you said you've asked for 120 in the past and gotten 80, so kind of asking for more when you know it's not going to be fully funded seems like a good policy just to approach, especially given, again, that one of these is something that's on that incorporated line, which can be confusing, and the county should pay for some of it.
Student member Kirsch?
I'm okay. I don't have any comments.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation and your work on this. I think that the consistency in the design will be good for drivers to get used to at these trail crossings, and I think it'll be a great addition. I'm passionate about educating the pedestrian and cyclist public, so to the extent we can, help people get to know what this is and what we're doing to make their community safer. I think it's also good for us to communicate how we're trying to help make our community safer. I think that would be good. And then as far as money's concerned, I'm always going to say shoot for the moon. I leave it up to your expertise and experience in, going for these grants. But I agree with my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, and really appreciate the projects and improving safety at trails. That's super important. On the grant, would it be helpful, not asking the question, I'm suggesting, that maybe there's an opportunity to get the county to write a support letter? I know with a lot of grant applications that if you can get stakeholder agencies involved and get letters of acceptance that or support, that can help in the grant award. I don't know about this particular grant. On the request side, I understand the value of not asking for all the money, but showing that you're putting in local money to show that the money that the agency is providing is leverage. You're leveraging local money to be successful, but 100,000 compared to 230,000 seems a little short-sighted to me. It seems, maybe you say 30% is coming from local and 70% is the request. See what you get. But right now with 100,000 to 230, you're looking at what, 40%? And so it seems you're going to get cut short anyway. So it seems like you should be higher, recognizing that you're going to get cut short. But I would encourage you to have a significant amount for local funding, because that does help from a leverage perspective. On the passive detection, I'm not a fan of that, not the microwave. I know that I'm probably in the minority, but I do like passive detection so that you don't have to touch the button. But passive detection, setting up microwave, it sort of sets up a chute, and in my non-professional opinion, it makes it feel like I should just ride right through, when an RRFB is actually intended to be a warning to drivers that there is a pedestrian or a bicyclist present that may be crossing the crosswalk. And there's no studies that suggest that what I'm saying is fact. It's more opinion. But I do really support the passive detection around the push button, so you don't have to touch it, but I'm not a fan of the microwave. It would also save you quite a bit of money if you used a different detection technology, and the microwave has some additional maintenance challenges with it that more of the basic functions don't. So take it for what you will. But I thank you very much for doing this, and I hope they can get built in 20 to 30 days, working days. That would be awesome. Okay.
So do we need a
So,
motion?
yeah, we need a
to-
motion for support for council.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to make a motion?
Yes, if it's not on. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to support the staff recommendation with the change to $118,759. I don't like numbers that end in zero. I find you get a much better response when you have a specific number like that. So I'd like to motion that we move the staff recommendation forward with a $118,759 request from the state in the grant application, and that city council support this.
I would ask to amend the motion to perhaps be a little more generic, to suggest additional funds as reasonably practical versus $118,000, what, $579.12?
Totally butchered that number, man. I should accept your motion.
So we have a modification to the first motion.
I'll accept that, and so I'll just amend my motion to include that, to make it
Okay.
easier parliamentary procedure-wise.
We really appreciate that. Thank you. Do we have a second for the amended motion?
I will second the amended motion. Thank you, Commissioner Ash.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Secretary, will you call the roll?
Student Commissioner Kurlich,
Aye.
Commissioner Ash,
Aye.
Commissioner Krelling,
Aye.
Commissioner Patch,
Aye.
Vice Chair Cagle,
Aye.
Chair Reese.
Aye. Okay. Now we'll go to the second item.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next on the agenda is an item for the commission consideration, the draft 2026-2027 capital budget and the 2026-2035 10-year capital improvement program, CIP transportation projects. At this time, I invite staff to provide their presentation.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Alex Wong. I'm the Senior Civil Engineer with the Capital Improvement Program. And tonight, here to present to you the transportation projects for the proposed 26 and 27 capital budget and the proposed 26 to 35 capital investment program. This is a study session, so we can spend more time to go over each of the programs. So just as an outline, first we reviewed the discretionary transportation projects in the proposed 26-27 capital budgets. I'm going to take questions after that, and then I'm going to move to the proposed 26 to 35 capital investment program, and I'll take some questions after that. And after that, we'll look for action from the commission to receive feedback and including questions, comments, and priorities from the commission of this proposed discretionary transportation projects in both documents. So the capital budget operates on a 2-year budget cycle. It's approved and adopted by council every other year, and it allocates funds for specific projects. It's informed by the first 2-year cycle of the 10-year CIP, and it incorporates where it responds to the grants that's awarded. So just looking at the capital budget, it's separated into 2 main categories. We have the asset management category and the discretionary project category. In the asset management side, we have the roadway maintenance projects, building and facilities, downtown parking and enhancements, parking and open space maintenance, and sidewalks, storm drains, traffic signals, and parking lots. On the discretionary side, we have the parks, recreation, and open space projects, these are PROS projects. We also have downtown parking and enhancements, facilities projects, and transportation projects, and that's what we're here to go over tonight. So the city collects developer fees to address traffic impacts from developments. This is based on projected rate per vehicle trips for the number of vehicle trips generated by a project. And these funds go into something called a TIF fund. And with that, we have a TIF project list, and that's where the funds go toward. So looking at this diagram here, we have the TIF list, which is a 30-year vision of projects. From that, we get the 10-year CIP, which is a 10-year planning of priorities. And then from that, we get the capital budget, which is a 2-year spending plan. So the current status of TIF. So TIF funds are lower than what was previously anticipated, reflecting a slowdown of development projects. This is inconsistent with the 10-year capital improvement plan projections. So the projections in our current fiscal year 24-25 cycle, the funds have been substantially below forecast. The TIF balance is currently overexpanded. We're looking to close completed projects or projects that have received outside funding and moving those funds back into TIF. We're also looking to move projects in previous budget cycles that have stalled or changed scope and move them back into CIP, and this frees up the money back to put back into the TIF. And those are just the projected funds for these cycles. So this is what's the proposed projects for the 26-27 capital budget. We have 2 projects. The Affordable Housing and Sustainable Community Improvements Project. It's also called the ASIC. It's an ASIC grant that we received. It's totals 2.436 and change million for that project. The second project we have is the San Miguel Drive pedestrian improvements for $690,000 in the TIF funds, and I'll go into more further detail for each one of these projects. So the first project, this is the ASIC project, the Affordable Housing and Transportation Communities Grant. This is from the 699 Ignacio Valley Road Development, received this grant. So what this project includes is pedestrian and transit enhancements. The project funds. So in the 22-23 capital budget, we included a project called the North Broadway Road Diet, and $3.8 million in TIF funds was already been allocated toward this project. So with this fund plus the 2.46 in the grant will supplement the cost of the work. So another major component of this project is that there's a development at the former DMV site, and under their development, they're responsible for the improvements of that road diet project on North Broadway from Royal to Ignacio Valley Road. So some of the highlights on the bicycle improvements on North Broadway, there'll be a new protected bikeway from Ignacio to Civic. And then also on a royal way for this project is a bike lane or bike route that goes from the Iron Horse Trail all the way to North Main Street. On Walden Road, a bike route from Jones Road to Civic Drive. And on Parkside Drive, a protected bikeway from Riviera Avenue to Civic Drive. And for the pedestrian improvements, with the roadway diet project, we'll have widened sidewalks along North Broadway, and also a new sidewalk along Jones Road. This is behind the existing curb and gutter between the BART track fence for sidewalk there. Transit improvements, so transit signal priority at signalized intersections, and then also some bus stop improvements for this as a part of this grant. So that's this project. The second project that we have is this San Miguel sidewalk project. This project's a joint effort with Contra Costa County. It's actually being led by Contra Costa County. So overview of the project is to construct a new sidewalk along the west side of San Miguel Drive. This extends from Neal Avenue to Adeline Drive. The city of Walnut Creek is responsible for the segment between Neal Avenue and Blackwood Drive. So you can see on the diagram there, that shows it starts at the intersection of Broadway and Newell. There's existing sidewalk going up the hill, up to San Miguel. And then you see the green part there, that's the city's portion for this project to install the sidewalk. And the yellow portion is the county portion where they go from Blackwood up to Adeline. So the purpose to close sidewalk gap and to complete the pedestrian network in the area. And again, this project's we're working with Contra Costa County as they'll be leading this project. And that's the capital. That's the 26-27 capital projects, capital budget projects. And I'll stop here to take questions before moving to the CIP.
Okay, Commissioner Ash, do you want to start off with questions on just this particular item?
I no questions. Comments later.
I have question
Yes.
or questions. I'm just trying to make sure I understand. We have this attachment too. I'm trying to make sure I understand these schedules.
Okay.
And so this first table talks about the estimated funds available, TIF and grants.
Mm-hmm.
You noted in your presentation that the ASIC already has 3.8 million of TIF allocated to it, but that doesn't show on this schedule, so I just want to kind of understand. All it shows is the 2.465 grant money. So it left me with questions like, well, is this a $6 million project and funded by the 4 million TIF and the 2.5 million grants? What's kind of actually happening there?
Well, that's a good question. So the previous it's already been allocated in the budget, so the funds are already been allocated. So we didn't want to show that twice, but it is a combined 3.8 plus the 2.6 for the projects that were listed on that project sheet.
And that's enough. It would be no unfunded need. That's enough money for the whole thing, the combined TIF and grant.
That's the plan.
Okay. just a suggestion for the future. I think on schedules like this, it would be nice to see the entire cost. Maybe it's another column, previously allocated funds, so that, you know, you can look at it and go, it's a $6 million project. We got the money for it. Good to go.
Yeah, good point. Thank you.
That was my only question. Thanks.
On the widening sidewalk portion, is that taking, like, is that going to end up narrowing the lanes? Where is the width of the sidewalk coming from?
This is for the Broadway road diet. Yes. It's a part of the North Downtown Specific Plan. Under that plan, currently Broadway is 2 northbound, 2 southbound. The road diet would change that into 1 northbound and 1 southbound with a dual left turn in the middle, and that gives you the room for the bike lane, parking, and then widened sidewalk.
Great. Thank you.
Student member Kirsch, do you have questions?
No questions.
Thank you. One question that I have is on the North Broadway piece, when it gets to YVR, what happens north of YVR on North Broadway? There's a lot of pavement width there. It does get narrower up by the post office, but are we just dropping the separated bikeways at YVR, and what happens?
Yeah, no, that's actually really a really good question there. The project actually extends to Central Avenue. We're looking into doing a treatment between Ignacio and Central on the north side.
Great. That's just not part of the grant application?
It's a part of it.
It is.
We're just not, yeah.
It's just not discussed. Okay, great. And then I have a question for the next go-round. So why don't you actually...
Chair, can I ask one extra question?
You say pretty please, yes.
Pretty please.
Okay.
Thank you. With the road diet and losing lanes, was there a traffic impact analysis performed to, we're going to have a lot of spillover to the other streets? What do you expect is going to happen when you put it on a diet?
I'm going to defer that to the city engineer.
Hello, Smidar Boardman, city engineer. So the North Downtown Specific Plan did evaluate North Broadway with the reduction in lanes, and it was envisioned in that plan that's already been adopted. So this is simply the implementation of that. Whatever findings were made in that plan, it was found to be, from a policy perspective, consistent with whatever was, anticipated for the plan. So, yeah. That's the goal here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Before we proceed, I have a question. Since we opened it up to comments in the middle of the presentation, do we then have to open it up to comments to the public, or do we wait till the end? Sorry.
No, because, sorry.
Okay.
No.
No, because this is just a regular item. It's just you're not voting on this item, so you can just questions, comments, whatever you want, and then we'll do public comment at the end.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was following proper protocol, because this is the first time we've phased it. Okay. If you could proceed then with the rest of your presentation.
Okay. All right. So, let's see. The 10-year capital investment program. So let's start with some background. So the 10-year CIP is a planning document. It's deliberately broad and long-term, which allows the city to identify, prioritize, and then schedule projects in 2-year cycles. The 10-year CIP does not appropriate funds that's done separately with the 2-year capital budget. The 10-year CIP is also a dynamic document that builds on previous work. It's a valuable tool for grant applications as projects are identified in city planning documents. So this slide illustrates the various inputs that go into the development of the 10-year CIP. The CIP pulls from a variety of stakeholders, including the staff, Transportation Commission, Pros Commission, Council. In addition, it pulls projects from adopted plans, including the TIF projects list, asset management plans, and pavement reports. We're updating the CIP in conjunction with the development of the capital budget. As you know, the 10-year CIP informs the capital budget. Typically, the first cycle of the CIP is the proposed capital budget. The CIP is a long-term 10-year planning tool, prioritizing programs and projects over 5 2-year cycles. This capital budget appropriates funds to specific projects, which means that money has been assigned to fund of specific projects. This here is another illustration showing the input that goes into the traffic-related 10-year CIP. I'm go through each of them. So funding source for the transportation-related projects. So typically we get general funds and gas tax. So in general funds, we get about $3.6 million per 2-year cycle for all asset management projects. This includes all the infrastructure. We have traffic signals and streetlight maintenance, sidewalk repairs, ADA upgrades, small amount for roadways. And then we also have gas tax and Measure J funds. These are the roadways, bridges, storm drain maintenance, and anticipate about $6 million per 2-year cycle. So I just want to mention that in the last couple cycles projects we did, we used gas tax and Measure J funds and some special district funds to repave Wiggett and Lennon. And with those paving projects, we also included pedestrian and bicycle improvements with those projects. So those do get incorporated in there. Also to come back to funding, traffic impact fees with fees that's assessed to new and expanded development projects. And we anticipate about $750,000 per 2-year cycle following the 26 and 27 cycle. This is a little more conservative than what we've done in the past. Also have grant funding. They're typically competitive and it's not always predictable. So that, I think on the bottom right there just shows the different funds groups. So for the 26-35 10-year CIP, so we first look at the 24 to 33 10-year CIP. This is we looked at the previous year CIP, and then we incorporate that into the 26 to 35 CIP. First, we look at the first 2 years, and then we look at 2 to 4, and then 4 to 6. And it's okay to have unfunded projects as a planning document. And the first 2-year cycle is the 26-27. That's I've already gone over with the ASIC grant projects and also the San Miguel Drive pedestrian improvements. The next cycle to follow up is the 28-29 projects. So this I'll go through each of the projects. So the first one we have the pedestrian improvements at non-signalized crosswalks. Second, we have the bike facilities per master plan. Third, we have the school area active transportation. Fourth, we have the citywide traffic calming. And the next one, we have the local road safety plan improvements. These 5 projects were in the previous cycle, and we looked to include these 5 projects in each of the cycles afterwards. And then after that, we have the 3 new projects proposed for this next cycle. The Treat Boulevard Corridor Improvement Project, the Ignacio Valley Road intersection improvements, and the Highway Safety Improvement Program projects. I'll go over each of these projects after this slide. So after those 3 new projects, we have the traffic signal at Treat Boulevard and Arkell Road. This project was in the previous CIP, as with the rest of them. The traffic corridor trail study, connector study, and improvements, environmental analysis and design. And then we have the traffic monitoring and communication technology. And next we have the Shaitlands multinodal improvements. After that, Lincoln Avenue bike path. And then the last one here is the Oakland Boulevard and Mount Diablo corridor. Per the downtown specific plan, the design component of that project for this cycle.
Wait, can I ask a clarifying question on that last slide,
Yes.
Mr. Chair? Okay.
Go back.
Is this just in like title order or like priority order or just the list here? I'm just curious.
It's all the projects on the list, not necessarily.
Okay, it's
priority.
not in any particular order. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so this is the first new project here on the 2829, the Treat Boulevard corridor improvements. So this is a joint effort with Contra Costa County. Just a quick overview is that, again, it's participation with Contra Costa County to implement safety and active transportation improvements along Treat Boulevard from North Main to Jones Road. The improvements in the Walnut Creek city limit includes safety enhancements for Treat Boulevard and the North Main intersection. This is also identified in the local roadway safety plan. The city's share of this project is about $756,000. And some of the improvement highlights, the Treat Boulevard, North Main intersection improvements, they'll modify the westbound slip lane to slow vehicle turning, modify the traffic signal to add protected crossing and for pedestrians, and improve crossing for bicyclists. It also installs striping for bike movements. And then as for bicycle infrastructure, it'll install a protected bikeway along Treat Boulevard within those project limits. And the pedestrian enhancements improve safety and comfort for pedestrians. So the next new project is the Ignacio Valley Road intersection improvements project. So this project is funded with the Glen at Heather Farm Developments. This is the development that's in the county, and they're contributing $1.75 million toward the city's work here. Some project overview is that it's improvement at 4 different locations: Ignacio Valley Road and Marchbanks Drive and Tampico intersection, Ignacio Valley Road and the Kinross Drive La Casa Villa intersection, and Ignacio Valley Road St. Carlos Drive intersection. And the project also includes a traffic circle at Kinross Drive and Marchbanks Drive. So some of the highlights here, it's implements parts of the local roadway safety plan improvements, and it's includes new traffic signals. It's a modify of the existing traffic signal with left turn phasing at location with and without a dedicated left turn lane. And addresses conflicts between the left turn vehicles controlled by permissive left turn phasing and pedestrians using the crosswalks across Ignacio Valley Road. The next project here is the Highway Safety Improvement Program project. So this is an HSIP grant that the city applied for $1.2 million with a local match of $300,000. The project overview, it includes implements the local roadway safety plan improvements, new traffic update of the existing traffic signals to add a new left turn phase at locations with and without dedicated left turn lanes, address conflicts between left turn vehicles controlled by permissive left turn phasing and pedestrians using the crosswalks across Ignacio Valley Road. And the intersections included in this grant is Ignacio and Walnut Boulevard, Ignacio and Wimbledon, Ignacio and Wicket Lane, and Ignacio and Via Monte. I'm going to stop here and just pause for questions on the 28 and 29 projects. Let me go back a slide. Couple slides, Matt.
Yeah, starting with the Treat Boulevard. Yeah, this. Just help me so I can understand. You got a lot of things going on there. You've got the highway people coming off. You've got overpass with the pedestrian bridge, the BART train. I don't know. I'm having trouble like understanding the engineering visual to these improvements. I don't know if you can help, if my question was very clear, or somebody can help me with that.
I'll pass this on to.
Well, you bring up a good point because I think there's at least 3 jurisdictions with the Caltrans ramps, the county, and then the city. But I think is it removing a lane? I think it's narrowing a bit. I'll let you speak to the improvements.
So as chair, one suggestion, it's a complicated project. One suggestion might be to offer to come back to this group at a later date and illustrate the project. And now you can go ahead and give.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so this Treat Boulevard study was initiated by the county, I think, back in 2014. They've been working with all of the jurisdictions and coordinating with all of us, completing the design and the operational analysis. So coming back to your question, what was your question again, please? Sorry. Huh? Sorry. So yes, it would not remove a lane. It would just be narrowing lanes. There are some changes to the northbound off-ramp for the Treat Boulevard exit, where they'd be removing the free right turn, what we call a slip lane, that Alex had mentioned earlier and is part of this project at a different location. And that was also evaluated by a traffic consultant hired by the county, as well as the improvements that are being proposed at the Walnut Creek intersection, so Treat and North Main.
And does any of this account for the 680 improvements that are going to extend the paid for lane? And they were going to make improvements to a couple of like exits off going, including I think North Main and Treat and other things.
Yeah, definitely. So I think you're referring to the ramp metering project for I-680 as well as the express lanes.
They're looking at adding a lane in part of 680.
Yeah.
And okay.
Yeah, so that's in the northbound direction. The southbound direction, I think, already has coverage. And yeah, so there's no change in terms of the number of lanes for this specific location that would be modified within the city. So again, looking at Treat and North Main, that would be signalizing that right now there is a slip lane when you're going westbound along Treat and you're going to turn right onto North Main to either loop onto the freeway to go southbound or to, go up North Main up to Pleasant Hill. So what is proposed is to actually signalize that so that pedestrians may cross, and it would only be operational when pedestrians are crossing. So, and that was already evaluated from an operational perspective. In terms of the ramp metering, that is a newer project and was not part of the operational analysis, but the location that we're talking about at Treat and North Main is before another traffic signal, before you can even get onto the ramps. So it's unlikely that the queue or like the vehicle spilling back would impact this location in particular.
Awesome. Thank you. And if at some point there is a better visual, as you advance this project and get closer to the timeline, I'd love to see that come back.
Okay, on this particular slide that's still up, can the city share with the commission, via email or otherwise, the traffic study related to? I'm really interested in the traffic engineers or consulting traffic engineers report and analysis on the getting rid of the free right-hand turn from northbound 680 to eastbound Treat. I'm very familiar with that intersection as that corner as a pedestrian. That's like taking your life into your own hands. But I also, you have to kind of take a balanced approach to things. Is it going to be a stop sign? Is it going to be a signal? How far back do we expect all those cars on that off ramp to back up? Will they back up into the actual slow lane of the freeway, increasing the propensity for a traffic collision that could lead to injuries, things like that? Be just interesting to see that study.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. We can follow up with that.
And then going back to the attachment to financial schedule that we have, when I look at the 28-29 list of projects, it looks to be about $9 million worth of projects, but about 50% unfunded. So we have about $4.5 million of TIF and grants, and then about $4.9 million of unfunded. How realistic is this list, given it's that underfunded?
It's the CIP is a planning document. It opens up opportunities for applying for grants and possibly receiving them.
Okay. Are the grants that are already listed in the grants column, I'm assuming those are expected grants, because we haven't gotten those grants yet, right? Or is that, because it's showing about $3.8 million in the grants developer column.
Yeah, we've applied for them, but we haven't heard back.
Okay, so those are applied for grants.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get maybe think about for the future, trying to expand these schedules a bit so that can got to get a feel for the financial picture of this set of projects. So, because I'm just trying to be a realist, and I'm looking at it from the perspective of how realistic is it that we'd ever get, half these projects done, and I granted it's a long-term planning document, but a long-term planning document is the most valuable when it has realistic assumptions in it. And when I look at a 50% unfunded, I get a little itchy about it.
Yeah.
That was my question, comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Pat?
I just want to second the request for the traffic study on the Treat Boulevard improvements, because I'm also very familiar with that exit, and removing that slip lane, I'm worried will have impact on the previous entrance because of the way the traffic flows. So just curious what the study is. Thanks.
Student Chair Kirsch, you have any questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering, what's the difference between the discretionary projects and the transportation projects?
So we have the asset management projects and the discretionary projects. The asset management is more toward maintaining the existing infrastructures, while the discretionary is more like added on at a discretion. It's not toward maintaining existing assets, but adding new assets. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Any questions?
Just one quick question about the Treat Boulevard project. You note the city's share of this and talked about the complications with working with multiple agencies on it. How does the funding work for the other agencies? Is it just respective to like the literal geographic or space that they're working with? How does that work? How in a shared project?
For this one, I believe the 756 is the city's portion from the city's right away to inside the city's right away. The city, this is project that's being led by the county, I believe. And then that's the portion they allocated for the city, and they've itemized the components. That's the city's.
Got it. And so the other jurisdictions, the county has itemized if Caltrans has any costs associated, and then their own county costs as well.
As far as I know.
Do we know what those are for the total project? No. Okay. Just curious. Thank you very much.
So I have a couple questions, and I think I'm starting to understand the information. I noticed that in all of the future years, you have a standard amount of money for pedestrian improvements, bike facility improvements, school area active transportation, citywide traffic calming, and it looks like local road safety improvements. But you have none for this year and for 26, 27. And I was curious as to why there's money in every other year for those elements, but not in the 26, 27 year.
Oh, yes, it's a good question. So as I mentioned earlier, our TIF funding right now, we're actually we've all overexpended, and we're having to close already some of the already funded projects or projects that's already done, and moving some of those projects back in the CIP to put money.
So
back
that's those
into the
projects
TIF.
are being moved back.
Yeah,
Okay.
to actually fund the projects that we're already obligated
Okay.
for, and it's we also have a lot of projects that we haven't yet completed currently, so we still have a lot of money in there to fund projects that we need to work on this next 2-year cycle also.
So you have a backlog of projects, and so it's a staffing issue. In part, if you had more staff, you could do more projects, but you have a backlog that you're trying to work through.
To catch up on, and like
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, the only, and I don't know the details of your impact fee funding and how it's allocated, but oftentimes what happens is that we push out a project and then we have construction inflation cost implications to it, and then all of a sudden it becomes harder to fund because we've pushed it out a few years, and then we end up compounding the financial problem by delaying projects. And so I don't know how your funding is set up, but I know you have to work out your resources to be able to deliver the projects. But these kinds of annual projects just get more expensive each year, and then your TIF program, you have to make sure that you're keeping up with that. And so just so I understand it, because I saw the highway safety improvement program projects, according to this table, has a lot of money available, and the Ignacio Valley Road traffic signal improvements, which also are safety improvements, has a lot of money. But I just heard from a previous discussion that we actually don't have that money. The 1.75 million for the YVR signals and the 1.92 million for the HSIP, we don't have that money. It's in applications that we hope to receive.
I think the one from the development, from the I forgot the name of that development.
The Ignacio Valley Road
Ignacio,
signals.
the Glen, the Glen at Heather Farm. I think that's a part of the development agreement out there.
Okay.
I think they've started, but I think we don't actually get the funds from development until I think occupancy. So that's quite
That's
a few
funded.
years away.
Okay.
So I think by the time the this next capital budget goes through. It's about that timeline.
Okay. And then I guess just a very broad question, there's been comments made about the difficulty of reading this. I presume that this is the same way that you've done this every 2 years, that it's the same tables, it's the same summaries, it's the same information, and you're just adjusting it. And I just wanted to be clear that this isn't a new format, because if it is a new format, I would like to make lots of comments on it, as other commissioners have already made comments on. But I'm assuming that this is a pretty standardized process that you follow every 2 years?
Yeah, it's
same forms?
It's a similar boiler that we use from previous cycles.
Okay.
It could be changed though.
Okay. It's just that there's a lot of questions about, well, when I read this initially, I was highlighting some of these projects where we have grant and developer funding, and why aren't we allocating those to be their urgent safety projects? If we have the money, why aren't we allocating it and prioritizing it more? But it sounds like this table isn't really intended to say what the money that we have is. It's intended to say, this is what we want to do, and this is what the costs are, and this is where we hope to get the money, as opposed to having it in the bank.
Yeah, it's a forecast.
It's a forecast, yeah, okay. And I was here 2 years ago, so I guess I should know that, but I forgot. I don't have any further questions. Do you have more in the presentation?
Oh yeah, we're only the 4 of the 10 years.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Let's proceed.
Right. Okay, so moving on, this is the 30 to 31 cycle of the traffic projects. So again, we have the 5 projects in there for the unsignalized crosswalk, bike facilities, school area, active transportation, citywide traffic calming, and local roadway safety plan improvements. So there are 5 projects, and then the other projects we have, these are also from the previous CIP cycle that we're just carrying it forward. The traffic signal master replacement, Ignacio Valley Road Class 1, ped and bike improvements between Viamonte and San Carlos, and then also the Ignacio Valley Road bike and ped, San Carlos to Iron Horse Trail. We also have the Ignacio Valley Road, Bancroft and Walnut intersection improvements, and then also the Ignacio sidewalk sound wall replacement at John Muir to San Carlos Drive. Another project here is the Main Street intersection redesign. This project is actually already in the TIF, and it's already in the CIP, but we're moving it from the discretionary downtown parking enhancement to the discretionary transportation projects. And take this next slide. So since I brought this up, so this project is already in the CIP. This is the Main Street intersection redesign. Includes the traffic signal and intersection improvements at North Main and Cypress and North Main and Bonanza. The main component is to improve the bulb outs out there, helps with the pedestrian experience, and then also it replaces those concrete poles that's out there right now and replacing with the modernized signal poles where you can have more functionality out of those. And I'll stop here to take questions on the 3031 projects.
Does the commission have any questions? No.
Yes, sorry, thanks. On this Main Street, weren't there funds available from the city was working with businesses to pay for improvements for people taking over the parking spaces and building permanent outdoor structures. Wasn't there some fees that the city was collecting in there that were supposed to be used for this project? Or help me understand that, whoever.
Pass this over.
Okay, hello. So this location, this is specifically the intersection itself. So any kind of outdoor dining, what we call these outdoor dining structures, would not be at the intersection. Those funds actually cover some portion of administrative costs, some staff time, and then there's also some funds that are going back to the parking enterprise fund, which, to Alex's point earlier, this is actually a project that had existed under as a parking and downtown enhancement project. But we're actually shifting it over to a transportation discretionary project instead, due to the parking fund being underfunded generally for these types of discretionary projects. And just so you know, as in terms of the outdoor dining, the funds that are available based on what we've received as a city, there is not adequate funds, and we don't really anticipate enough funding to cover the costs of this type of improvement with the income from the outdoor dining program.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful.
A follow-up to that? Sorry. I just had a follow-up to that. So I understand that with regards to the intersections. What about the Locust Street improvements that were done, which look awesome? Or is that out of the downtown fund, or is that out of the discretionary transportation fund, or is there another way that those are funded?
Alex can answer this, but I'll answer for him since I'm already up here. So it's that the Locust Street project was a roadway maintenance project. So that's one of those asset management projects, as opposed to these discretionary transportation projects that are all. So the discretionary transportation projects, there was those boxes, that slide. Those are all paid for out of either TIF or grant funding, and that's our only opportunity for funds. Locust Street was out of roadway maintenance. That's an asset management type project. So it was gas tax, right? It was 100% gas tax? Gas tax and Measure J funds were used for the Locust Street project.
Thank you. Any additional questions?
Well, I guess as we go to more electric cars, we're going to miss the gas tax money, huh? On the YVR sidewalk sound wall replacement, John Muir to San Carlos, are we 100% positive that's on city property? I asked that because I was involved with a similar sort of fence sound wall paint job that, the city was like, it's not ours, it's on private property. Do we know for sure this is truly the city's responsibility, or is it private property and it's the homeowner's responsibility?
See, I think we had a right-of-way study done on Ignacio Valley Road, and it shows that the city has a pretty consistent right-of-way out there. And I believe, not knowing the information right in front of me, I believe it is in the city right-of-way.
Okay, yeah, be worth double checking.
Yeah.
Love to know for sure. Thank you.
Commissioner Batch?
No questions.
No questions.
Right. Getting close. Okay, so moving on to the next cycle, the 32-33 cycle. Again, we have the same 5 projects: the pedestrian improvements, bike facilities, school area active transportation, citywide traffic calming, and local roadway safety plan. And then after that, we have these carryover projects: the Olympic Boulevard corridor construction, the wayfinding and parking signage, the Oakland Boulevard and Mount Diablo corridor per Pacific Land. This is the construction component of it, and then also the construction part of the Main Street intersection redesigns. And these are the projects for the 22-23. I'll take any questions here before moving to 34, 35.
Aye.
So, yeah.
Any, of course, yeah.
I'm just curious why one project stands out so much more in the budget. Just what is that? Like, it clearly entails a lot more, the $11 million project.
I mean, costs-wise?
Yeah, just curious what that is in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, the Oakland. So it's I think it's on the project list, but Oakland Boulevard. It's a full, like the current slope of the street. It's not like a. It's more it's a slanted. It's not like a standard street where you have one side's a lot higher than the other side. So a project there would require substantial adjustments, and making things work. It'll probably be a separated roadway, separated on two sides, and it'll be a costly project to construct.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? No. None?
Why is one of them in red?
Just because that was a new project from the last.
Thank you.
Just one, I was just looking at the formatting, and the table on the screen matches the table in our here, except for the estimated funds available. Our handout says $1,008,000, and this says $1,508,000. And I noticed that there were a couple other times where that number doesn't quite match what we have, and I don't know if there's a reason for that.
Yeah, that was so.
Or if it's a
we
typo.
we submit the reports like a week or so before the actual this
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah.
And we've since met with our finance department, and based on what they were saying about some of the projections, since these last couple of years have been so lean, they weren't looking at such a high amount of fees coming in.
Yep.
So so it was changed halfway through.
Okay.
It was a good catch.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we're checking everything and getting it refined. So next 2 fiscal years.
Okay. Last one. Sure. This is the 34-35, the last of the 10-year cycle. Again, we have the 5 projects: the pedestrian improvements, bike facilities, school area active transportation, citywide traffic calming, and local roadway safety plan. The 2 other projects that's carried over from previous CIPs is the Olympic Corridor Trail Connector Study improvements, and then also the traffic signal at Civic and Arroyo Way. And these are the last 2 projects, and I'll take comments and questions on the 2635 CIP.
Wonderful. Commissioner Ash?
Okay, so thank you so much, and thank you for your tag team help that chimed in to answer my complicated questions. So great work on all of this. I love the roadway diet on Broadway. We've had a lot of conversations in here. One of the best ways to slow traffic down and make things safer overall was reduce the lane width. And so that fit into that, so I appreciate that. The Ignacio and Treat intersections coming up in the earlier years, I appreciate those being priorities, especially a lot of that area on Ignacio where you're going to do work. There's a lot of student crossing, and so I'm sure that was part of the reason why it was considered and on there. So I just appreciate those coming. And then I just wanted to bring up when you were talking about Oakland, and I know you pointed to Mount Diablo, but on the other side on Ignacio, where there's the multi-use pedestrian bike path on the left, when you make the left from Ignacio over, on Tuesday, it was the 4th time in the last 2 years I have seen a car miss the traffic lane and go up on the multi-use path. And if there's anything immediately you guys can do to put like a red painted strip or those little plastic like pedestrian things before somebody gets hit. And it's not drunk drivers, it's a tough visual sometimes. So I'm just gonna share that with everybody to, again, on Tuesday, I saw a car go up on that. So those were my comments, thanks.
First off, thanks for walking through all of this, a lot of materials. You did it efficiently, so thank you. I think the projects are, overall good projects. I'm glad to see we have the year-over-year, like I'll call it the core projects that are always paid for, that good prioritization. The main thing, I know we're not really, our role here is not to really like approve or bless the budget, that's council's, but to the extent that, and I'm making this comment based upon the chair's comment that was based on my comment, which is, hey, and I think you even said we could change things, process improvement is a good thing. If there was a more comprehensive way we could see and understand, this is what we want to do, this is where we think we're going to get funding, this is where we actually have funding, and then if we don't get funding, is there a can the projects be listed in priority of importance overall to all of our, our pedestrian safety, local roadway safety, goal zero mission of transportation here. The injuries out there are real. I live pretty close to Oak Grove and Ignacio, and it wasn't that long ago we had a pedestrian hit out there. So it happens. It happens in all of our backyards. So keep up the good work.
This is great. Thank you for the presentation. I'm super excited to see how many Class 1 bike lanes are in this plan. I just think that that's going to be a huge improvement for the city and for our safety of our bikers. One thing that I noticed when I was looking at this before this meeting is the wayfinding isn't listed until fiscal year 32, 33, that plan. And I'm just wondering if there's a way that we could do some of that beforehand, because I think something like that is a small win that can get people excited about what the city is doing. And I know that some people still find parking in downtown really hard to find for some reason, and bike racks where they can park their bikes to be pretty hard to find as well. So since it's one of the less expensive items on this bucket, if there's a way to like do a little bit improvement each year instead of waiting, that's 7 years from now, that would be really cool. And then I did find it a little difficult to follow the priorities and why some of these projects were in X year instead of Y year. So some of that would be really helpful in future packets. And then finally, just a note that the order of this was that we got from our packet that was mailed to us beforehand was very different than what was in the slides. And I understand that you're updating, and that's great. Love that we're getting the most up to date, but maybe there's a way that the slides could somewhat be in the order of the package we got, because it was a little hard to follow. Thank you.
Student member Kirsch.
Thank you for the presentation, and I'm looking forward to seeing the final results of the projects, especially the one on San Miguel, because I go there almost all the time, and I've noticed that there's a big need for more sidewalks for pedestrians. So, yeah.
Vice Chair Cagle.
Thank you for all of your work on this. It's, it's a very big undertaking to look at this and look forward. The unfunded needs are kind of daunting. Causes me a little stress, I think, with that column and thinking about, what we need to move some of this forward. But here's hoping that, things look up and we get some good grants and things coming in so that we can move some of this forward. So I don't have any other comments other than thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It was excellent, and appreciate all the work that goes into preparing this. And I know that it has to balance against resources so available to the city. So I appreciate all that. What I also appreciate about our capital improvement program is that as I look through here, and it's very different than what I might have seen 15 years ago. What I would have seen 15 years ago is, let's improve this traffic signal, let's get better green time, let's see more cars get through here, let's add a left turn lane or add a right turn lane, or get rid of a crosswalk so that we can make the cars go better, faster, more efficient. And as I look through this capital improvement program, I see very little of that. I see improving intersection safety. I see adjusting traffic signal phasing and timings and operations to separate pedestrians and bicyclists from turning automobiles, which is a primary factor of collisions. I see the Class 1, the trail crossings. I see new Class 1s that were meant facilities, multi-use paths and such. And these are all projects that make our community more livable. So I really appreciate that you have almost all projects are geared towards that, safety and livability and comfort for all users of the road rather than just the people in the cars. I do remember that we had, in one of our previous discussions, we had information about the downtown parking. We talked about the confusing signage, the inconsistent signage, the inconsistent placement. And just as Commissioner Patch said, I think the wayfinding and cleaning that up, it's like, I know the Locust Street project was expensive, but it was an asset improvement. So we didn't really do anything new, but it's wonderful. The sidewalks that have been repaired are much better to walk on. I don't trip anymore, at least in those areas where they've been improved. Everything is better, and it makes it it feels better to be downtown with that asset change. And it seems like the parking signing and getting some consistency and consistent placement of signs and bike racks and making it visible would be a real asset to the downtown. And so if there is a way to move that small item forward, or maybe it's being supplemented with downtown money from a different source, I think that would go a long way. And then as far as the materials go, it really would be helpful, I think, when looking at this, because I was going to move priorities and move projects around, and I decided not to because during our discussion I learned that we don't actually have this money. So it doesn't really help for me to move projects around when you don't have the money. And so maybe I should have known that, but I didn't. And so I don't have a way of prioritizing these projects. They're all important, and it would be helpful to understand why the priority is the way it is, at least, if we can't understand what money is actually available. And I understand that it's a projection of of what assets we'll have, what revenue we'll have in the future. But it would help to understand the priority of where these projects, why they're on the years that they are in 2 years from now, when I may or may not be on the commission. So thank you very much.
Chair, can I add one comment in furtherance of your last comment?
Sure.
Thank you. If the city does not have, it would be good to have like a scoring criteria to help, determine the appropriate criteria to prioritize these types of projects, regardless of what's funded or unfunded, so that you can rate and rank the projects and really look independently of money. We should, these are the most important ones to us. So then if money pops up, you kind of already know the money should go to the ones at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I realize that I did not open the item up to the public before giving our comments. At this time, I'd like to open up the item to public comment. Do we have any members of the public wishing to provide public comment?
We have no members of the public waiting to provide comments.
Great. Thank you very much. And do we need to take any action here? Just a study session?
There's no action. Did you have anything
No,
else?
Just what's the next step is that we're gonna incorporate your feedback into the capital budget and also the CIP. And then we plan to present this to the city council and for their adoption, for at least for the for both documents.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Before we move to the next agenda item, I propose to take a 5-minute break, if you'd like.
Certainly.
I'll put the timer on.
Okay. The next item on the agenda, the next item on the agenda for the commission to consider is input for city council priority setting. This is meant to be a discussion amongst ourselves about priorities for the city council to consider.
Yeah, so this is pretty informal. Just want you to reflect on the past priorities from 2 years ago and provide, comments as well as ideas for future priorities for the council to consider. So this is kind of your input into what the council should consider as a priority. So if you look at the agenda report for this item in your packet, you can see a list of the past priorities, including diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, economic development and job creation, environmental sustainability and climate action, parks, facilities, and other infrastructure, and then the fifth one, public safety and social wellness. There's some additional descriptions in there, but really kind of want to capture your thoughts here on this and try to create a summary that we can then pass on to City Council.
Okay. Would the commission like to proceed? We can go one by one. Is that the preference for now, or do you want to just banter back and forth? One by one?
We can go one by one, but if people want to make comments in the middle or ask questions, then
Let's do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to start, Commissioner Ash?
I guess. I'd love to see a report on how did they do and how did they score themselves. So that would be my first sort of comment and question, right? Did they achieve these things? Did they meet their goals? And all of that. I definitely think economic development and job creation should be in here, but I would like to see specific things tackled, such as employee parking has come up in a lot of conversations I've been in. So more and more, particularly of the retail sector, like the employees that work there are coming from further and further away, and they have to pay their own parking, and some of them move their cars. They have to leave their job every 2 hours to move their car to get a free thing, or it's not subsidized. And we've got to figure out a specific economic development program related to employee parking and stuff. I also would put under economic development and job creation, I would got to think through these thoughts here. I'm going to hold off, but I would say be specific in there with the goals. All right, can you come back to me for the rest?
Yeah.
I want to phrase how I'm going to phrase things.
All right. I did participate 2 years ago. I didn't participate, but I went to the meeting to listen when the council was forming their priorities. So, and I actually think, and there's some links in the back here, I think there are some reports on their progress available out there on the website. So looking at the environmental sustainability and climate action, I think it's good we make reasonable, measured movement and progress in that area. The one thing I would maybe ask to pull out, because the city is not a scientific organization, and I do not believe we have climate or weather scientists on staff. I know it's a very politically charged area. There are scientists on both sides and scientists in the middle. I think for our city to adopt a climate emergency resolution is probably going a bit too far. I would ask them to consider to not have a political body go that far and declare a climate emergency on behalf of the city of Walnut Creek. I think,
I think they already chose one.
yeah. Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, because these are the 23 to 24 priorities.
Okay.
So they already chose not to do the climate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Probably my big ones under public safety and social wellness, and I'm sure others were going to bring this up too, but I got to bring it up first. If we think about what has happened in Los Angeles, with the, lack of enough water to fight that large of a fire. I know it was unusual circumstances. As a pilot, I get why they weren't in the air with those winds. And I hope we never have that kind of fire here in Walnut Creek, but it did get me thinking about, and this would be done, I think, either in conjunction with, or they would just get data maybe from Contra Costa County Fire. Do all of our hydrants have sufficient pressure? Is there enough water coming through those hydrants to handle, a house fire on the low end to, we have a lot of multi-residential buildings. We're building more multi-residential buildings. We're building more single-family homes in, such close proximity, some as close as the distance between, Laura and Jared here on some of the more recent projects. Is there enough water available at our hydrants to feed, Contra Costa County Fire's needs to put out these fires? I think it was just sort of a wake-up call. Fortunately, I don't think we're built as a city where we're likely to have, a firestorm like they experienced just because of our topography. And we don't seem to get that level of wind, although I remember the heavy winds when the fires were happening up north. So I'd love to see something about ensuring we have the water and sufficient testing of pressure so that we in Walnut Creek, no homeowner, resident, renter, business owner, business customer ever gets caught, being surprised that the fire can't be put out. That's my big one for now.
I would add to that a little bit, and it gets at maybe some specifics, but oftentimes when you have those big fires, you can't do much, like we've seen in LA, and so the important thing is life safety and evacuation. And so I would kind of add that to it beyond just the functional aspect of, is there a hydrant system and do we have adequate water coverage, but more importantly maybe, do we have adequate facilities to get people out if there's a fire or some other large emergency?
Yeah, that's a great point, because actually one of our public speakers tonight talked about, they were talking about the speed bumps, but would any of our traffic calming work delay sufficiently the evacuation and or the ability of the emergency vehicles to get in?
I think I would not, I don't think I would be happy with going to say, is it traffic calming? Because it's more than just traffic
Yeah.
calming. It's how do you move people? How do you know what the population is, you know approximately what auto ownership is, so could you try to figure out and assess if you can move a large group of people out of an area independent of what, well, let me rephrase that. Move a large group of people out of the area while still having, based on the roads that they have for themselves. So the roads in, out where Jarrett lives or Commissioner Ash lives are going to be very different than the roads in Larkey
Yep.
Park area versus the roads where I live on the outskirts of downtown. So I think more along the lines is generally evacuation. How is that? And the ability to fight the fire or deal with the mass emergency if it's an earthquake or something like that.
Very good.
So can I tack on to that, maybe creating a resiliency?
You stole
Right.
my word.
I'm
I
thinking,
was sitting over here waiting, and I've got it written down already.
and I think the League of Cities has done some work and studies on resiliency and how cities can prep, and that includes preparing for fires. I know we do a good job with the goats and some of the canals and at Lime Ridge at creating barriers, but I think we should look at the fire, the water that everybody's talking about, the evacuation routes, because if Lime Ridge and Mount Diablo catches like a large scale fire, and by the way, like this summer we did have a fire in Lime Ridge, and before the fire trucks even got there, there was helicopters and airplanes dropping on it. So that was just very impressive to the response times. But if we have to evacuate everybody from Clayton and North Concord and all of Walnut Creek down Ignacio, we ain't getting out fast enough, right? And I know Moraga has those challenges. So maybe overall look at resiliency planning with fire, water, evac in a couple different ways.
Great.
Cool. So my understanding is that the city is going to have it's one of or the council is going to have as one of their priorities the general plan because it needs to be done, and that was part of the discussion 2 years ago is if it was going to be in this priority list or the next one. So my guess is we won't have these particular priorities. So I'm going to weigh on things that I think that they should keep or add or adjust. I think the DEI is really important to continue. I would like to see some of the language that this council and the city uses around inclusion and equity include accessibility. Because we do talk about mental health in terms of homelessness and public safety, but not in terms of like how do we address it on a day-to-day basis as well as mobility issues. And from a transportation perspective, you know, there's still improvements we can do for that. The economic development and job creation, I love the idea of the economic diversification element of it, but I feel like it's a little, as it was written 2 years ago, doesn't acknowledge work from home culture, which, you know, there's a little bit of shift away in the tech industry, but for a lot of organizations, it is still people working from home. And so how do we, is there anything that they want to do about those people that are here and what that ends up entailing, right? A lot of us that work from home end up doing DoorDash a lot, and that has having impact on our city because you get the cars waiting and pickups and all that kind of stuff in our downtown area as well as other shopping centers. I am mostly concerned that they won't have something about the environment in their priorities, and I think that that's a mistake. I understand that the Sustainability Action Plan has been passed, but that doesn't mean that it shouldn't still be a priority. And along those lines, I think it needs to be about environmental sustainability and resilience, focusing on some of our, like, decreasing waste usage because recycling isn't very effective, open space elements so that we can prepare for if there's fires by decreasing the chances of fires. Trees in grassy areas helps a lot. So would love to see that stay in the priority list. And maybe that's the environmental sustainability and resilience and the parks facilitation and other infrastructure can combine somehow, because I think those align, especially when we're talking about Measure O funding, tree planting, those kind of things that are improving the environment as well as the citizen experience, I guess. And then for public safety and wellness, this blurb that they had 2 years ago, 3 of the 5 talk about crime and police. And I agree with what's kind of already been said, that safety needs to consider more than that. And as we experience worse natural disasters, flooding is going to be an issue in the city. Fires, obviously, are going to be an issue. I love that there is something about transit and traffic and pedestrian and bike safety. Want to make sure that that stays, but maybe, I don't want to say a de-emphasis on crime safety, but also an understanding that safety doesn't just mean crimes and police force. It also means our county fire department and working with them for evacuation plans. There's sandbags for when it does rain, but like, do people actually know that they can get them and where they are? So better communication around that would be really great. And then what to do in case of a fire. So maybe like some residential education.
Student
Perfect timing.
Student Chair Kirsch.
So yeah, I think like a lot of these priorities are pretty intertwined, like the public safety and social wellness, as well as economic development and job creation. I'm not sure how I would rank them in order of importance, but I would probably say that like the 2 biggest ones would be public safety and social wellness, and the economic development and job creation. And also maybe like affordable housing, or just like in the downtown area, for example, there's a lot of stores that have had to close down recently because like the lease is really high, so maybe we should try to do something about that. So
Okay. I think in light of the fires in Southern California and, recent other potential disasters that, have kind of been in our sight, whether it was the tsunami warning recently from that earthquake up north, and just, different disasters. The Bay Area is disaster prone, earthquake prone, et cetera, correct? So I think emergency response is something that would be smart to look at this year. And, from our Transportation Commission lens, of course, evacuation routes are going to be important for a lot of those different type disasters. And then in general, around some of these, I don't see them changing that drastically if I were to look in a crystal ball of what the council is going to do. But in general, I would encourage forward thinking when it comes to AI and technology and how all of that is changing as far as all of the priorities are concerned, and how specifically we can make our transportation system safer using some of that. And then also considering that when aligning our transportation planning efforts with economic development. Just a more technology savvy lens. Thank you.
I formulated some more of my thoughts. Do you want me to go before you so you can go last, or should I?
By all means, I want to hear your well thought out thought.
Well, I don't know how well thought out they are, but they sound better than me just stuttering. So along the lines that my colleague, Vice Chair Cagle, suggested, I was going to suggest that the city become a leader in adopting AI technology, even willing to pilot programs, and you could prioritize within that. I wrote down public safety, traffic, public works, streamlining permitting, are all tools that AI could really help with, and the resiliency thing, the evacuation routes, the technology coming in AI is going to make a real difference. I put down that the city council and senior city staff should do town halls, and I hope that none of them know that was me who said this, but town halls per the neighborhoods. Walnut Creek is very unique that we have a lot of neighborhoods, but not often is there a concentrated effort for the city to go into a lot of those different neighborhoods. And I saw this year, and Smadar was very involved, Matt was very involved. In like the Woodlands area, they hosted a public meeting at the library. They got out and did a transportation display in some of the neighborhoods. And I think if the city can host these town halls and get out there into those with a couple of key staff and one or two members of the council, I think that would be important to do over the next 2 years. And then because we're the Transportation Commission, maybe we should have transportation as a priority. And I noticed in all of our capital budgets, improving the commute down Ignacio wasn't on there. But I know there was a lot of important other things, but maybe we should look at like, where is transportation going in the next 10, 15 years? And how can Walnut Creek be a leader in that? Because the traffic down Ignacio isn't just people in Walnut Creek, it's people from the whole region that are coming through our city as a transit corridor, connecting to other cities. But they're also shopping here, which leads to the economic development. And so if our city could sort of, I think we could be more innovative as a city overall in transportation and technology adoption. So thank you.
I totally agree. Like, I think it would be very cool to see transportation and transit as a priority by itself, because I think it like would allow us for some of these cool projects that staff has come up with to get priority and funding that they might have to fight for. And also because like we're one of the pilots for the AI-driven buses, and I'd love to see more of those kind of programs in our city. And I think having it as a priority for 2 years might allow for that.
And I love the town hall idea, getting out. I think that's great. And then wherever you want to sequence me in, Chair, I do have one other thing I want to add. And I can go after you or whatever you want.
Go ahead and go. I'll go last.
We're saving the best for last, the chair.
He's so polite.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring forward something from my Design Review Commission passion. So I just looked up, as of 2023, we had the population of Walnut Creek, about 69,150 or so people. So a lot of people. And I would like to see the council start taking a more balanced approach to development, to not just blindly go where the state says we shall go, but to be thoughtful and balanced and think about the 69,000, maybe 70,000 people that live here now, and not have an attitude of, hey, the people who've lived here forever, you don't matter anymore. We're just going to do all this other stuff with development, and we don't care what it does to your neighborhood or your, your quality of life. I'd like to see more balance and more thoughtful concern for the 69,000 that are already here.
Anything else? No?
I have 18 other items that.
You can wait 2 years from now.
Or go to the February meeting.
So I think that one of the things that I struggled with when I saw this last time, and I did go back and look at the reports, is that transportation is not here. I mean, it is. We have improved traffic, transit, pedestrian, and bike safety. We have another place we use the term alternative transportation. In another place we say attractions and infrastructure. So yeah, we could meddle in and say transportation, but let me just say transportation, starting with the emergency issue, evacuation, that's transportation. Getting the fire department to where they need to go, that's transportation. Getting the ambulances where they need to go, where the hospitals go, that's transportation. Getting the kids safely to places where they want to be for recreation or for schools, that's transportation. Getting the people to use the buses, giving opportunities for people to use the buses, that's transportation. Giving people that live in Rossmore opportunities to not have to drive their cars as they get older, but give them opportunities to use like transit, to get to the downtowns, to get to the community centers, that's transportation. I can go on and on and on and on. Transportation is what our city is. If we look at the infrastructure and we look at our assets, look at what we did on Locust. We improved the Locust corridor. That is transportation. And yet transportation is not on here, and it needs to be. Transportation is also about sustainability. If we have a balanced transportation system where people have choices, they drive less, that helps with the environment. Whether you agree or disagree or have something in the middle about climate action or climate change, transportation as a balanced system helps that. Your economic development and job creation, you have people working at home. You mentioned Uber and Lyft and Amazon and all these. That's transportation. Getting those people that are working at home an easy way to get to the local businesses is transportation. Your development issue, your concern about the 69,000 people that are here. But we also have closed up retail downtown. Putting housing downtown is transportation, but it is also economics. If they're living downtown, they don't need to drive as much. They can walk and bike and use transit. And if they are living downtown, they can support the businesses so that the retail shops don't have to dry up because they can't survive. That's transportation. So I've just shown how transportation, parks, I could go on, I don't want to go on. Transportation is key to our city, and yet we don't have anything in here except throwing in a little bit of stuff under public safety, a little bit over here and a little bit there, but it's so generic that there ends up being no priority in this city around transportation. Now, I know that the city is shifting and it's moving towards a safety aspect, but transportation is also economic development, it's sustainability, it's safety, public safety, however you want to use the term safety. It's social welfare. If we can provide ways of helping the people that are either homeless, unhoused, whatever the term is that we're supposed to use now, or whether they need to get to services, it's all transportation, and yet we don't have anything. And so I would ask that if you could, you've heard a lot of information from all the other commissioners, if you could develop something that is related, that relates all of that to transportation and have that as a goal and integrate the other pieces that are here, I think that that would be really important. And I haven't written it. I've thought about it, but I have not written it. It's hard, and I don't know what your next process is, but I wish that the city would do that.
So would you guys agree, would you all agree that transportation should be the priority with a lot of the discussions that you talked about, including emergency preparedness, environmental sustainability, pedestrian bicycle safety, wrapped up into that transportation priority? Is that what you're proposing, Rob?
That's what I'm proposing.
And then, yeah, how do you guys?
And you could even include economic development and public
Sure.
safety aspects in that too.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that covers a lot of it. I think the DEI still needs to be pulled out from transportation because while there's elements of it, it needs to be a broader category.
Yeah, so still having DEI. And then, Laura, you also mentioned the general plan. I wanted to see if we had any other comments on that from the commissioners. And Rob, you mentioned that 2 years ago when I watched the video.
Wow.
You did mention the general
Yeah.
plan then, yeah.
Do you want to go for? So for the general plan, I do think that the general plan, if it's approached, if it's approached the way I want it to be approached, the general plan is a real opportunity to illustrate how these elements in the general plan, how they relate and are interrelated. And I think that you would get a lot of, or some of what I just talked about and what the others here have talked about, as long as we can approach the general plan not as silos, which is what tends to happen in general plan processes. We approach it as silos. I'm my transportation expert. I do transportation. Others are the parks expert. They do parks, and no one looks at how they relate to each other. And I think that's the piece that's missing in most cities is the integration, how everything is integrated. And I would agree that D&I doesn't really fit. That's more of a personnel thing, and it's a way that we treat people and that sort of thing. So I think that is different, and I'm not saying that transportation should be the only focus. I'm just saying that it needs to be a key priority. And the general plan is one way of getting a holistic shift, if we will, to thinking about our city a little bit differently.
So I would say, bravo to the chair for how you pulled that all together and, connected all the different dots to transportation. I think that's fantastic. I generally agree with what you're proposing, Matt, around trying to get transportation as the main theme. I just think there's a few things. I agree the DEI is a separate. And I think some of the safety things we talked about, like do we have enough hydrants with enough pressure? Are they being tested? That piece, I think, is more of a safety piece than a lot of the other stuff that the chair brought up, connecting the dots between the safety and the transportation is spot on. But there's a couple things, that I was thinking about, like do we have the right water pressure? Do these things work? When's the last time we tested them? I think that's a core safety, not transportation issue. Mm-hmm. And it's an outlier issue, but it sounded like everybody was fairly concerned universally about, are we prepared?
Well, and that element of safety should include things like prepared, not just like responses, but like preventative preparedness.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that was a great add.
Yeah, definitely.
For the general plan, I feel like I could see something similar to what they have in the environmental sustainability and climate action from 2 years ago, where like the goal is to complete the city sustainability action plan. The goal for having a general plan on the priority list is to complete the general plan because we need one and they can't put it off anymore. I would have personal thoughts on what should be included in that, but I think coming from the commission, it's like acknowledgement that it needs to be there and the goal needs to be written and passed.
Yeah, and to follow up on what my two colleagues said, yes, on the general plan, it's time. It's been 40 plus years. It's time for an update. And yes, I still think resiliency should be put in as a separate topic that includes the fire, the water, and all of that. Yes, and then I would love it, and I don't know what our ability is from up here, so staff, please correct me. But per the discussion between the secretary and the chair just a minute ago in the study session, if you could write something up, I don't know if we're not allowed to comment on that, though, as a group, right, out of here?
No.
Okay.
I don't-
So, never mind, skip that. That's why I was talking out loud.
But please include trees in the resiliency element. I will never stop advocating for more trees.
Do you have what you need?
I am going to, so I'm going to try to, like, if you were council, right? Let's think of your top 5 priorities. And based on the discussion, I'll put those together as DEI. You'd keep that basically. General plan update. To Commissioner Krelling's point, I kind of combined safety and infrastructure. So to the pressure of the water, kind of combining their two, but so pulling like their safety and combining with infrastructure. And then the last one would be transportation, and that covers environmental sustainability, that covers infrastructure preparedness or resilient emergency response. It also covers technology, AI integration, and it speaks to economic development, considering transportation. So trying to combine a lot of those topics you discussed there. How does that sound?
Could I make one suggestion? Yeah. Do public safety, infrastructure, and climate resilience. I think that captures a little bit more.
I'm good with that. And then I think you could throw the housing under transportation. It's really almost where you build the housing so that you reduce the traffic as opposed to increase the traffic. Kind of fell nicely in there.
So totally agree with everything. You did great job putting everything together. I would have technology innovation and being a leader at adopting and piloting new technologies under every single one of those categories, not just transportation, because I think it should ring true, and I would love to see Walnut Creek as a leader in that side of things.
You'd put it under DEI? I'm curious just like what that would entail.
That might be a longer conversation, but I think you can, because I want to choose my words carefully. I think technology might not have the same bias that a human eye does. And I think there's ways that you could use it appropriately to take away any preconceived biases that us as humans are flawed with.
Oh, I was going to do just the opposite. I was going to say that the problem with technology is that it does not follow DE&I. It is only as good as the people that make it. And therefore, technology and innovation needs to be developed with DE&I as a focus so that it is balanced in its development and application.
I think that's where I land a little bit more. As a expert in digital accessibility, like there's a lot of AI out there that claims it's going to fix accessibility, and it actually makes things less accessible for people.
Okay, so I'm corrected. So everything but under DEI embrace
No.
technology.
I think it can go under DEI, but it's like ensuring that technology is accessible and follows DEI best practices.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we're all responding. Well, we'll go with the theme. We all have our own bias as to what you might have meant with your comment. So my personal bias was, AI could maybe be a powerful tool in analyzing is your DEI program doing what you want it to do after you've defined what success looks like?
Yeah.
And we forget that DE&I is also about accessibility. It's about people with mobility, hearing, visual impairments that need to be able to have equal access,
And doesn't technology and AI, can it lead to more of that?
or make it worse.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going with the better side of how do we filter it in, right?
I think it's one of the items that we need to, one of the things we need to consider when we are for that goal, that priority. We have to recognize that what goes in there is we want it to be balanced. We want it to be accessible.
I mean, we could just, have we believe a priority from the six of us, would be using and adopting leading edge technologies and being a role model for other cities. And
To advance DE&I.
no, I'm making it more broad, to advance kind of everything we do to care and feed the city of Walnut Creek.
So are you suggesting another priority?
Yeah, because
Separate
I think,
priority.
yeah, just like another priority it's really Commissioner Ash's proposal. And, we've been talking about, what does that mean? Does that fall under some of the others, or is it, I'm starting to feel like standalone might be better. And because then that technology, the discussion can happen amongst the council and throughout the city leadership and staff, if they adopted as a priority, adopting leading edge technologies to further, the growth, care, and feeding of Walnut Creek. It could go to anything.
You're making the argument that I made about transportation.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with that.
See, flatteries, repetition or imitation is the serious form of flattery, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's why you're smiling.
One point I did want to cover is the town halls and the communication and maybe even education. Could we combine that into the general plan as kind of the outreach for that general plan?
Yes.
Do you not
If they're
see-
gonna do the general plan as a prioritization item, this could fall under that, because to do that, yes, it would tie in together. Because to do the general plan, you should be having these very localized neighborhood meetings and conversations in preparation for that. Yes.
Yeah, and it's a good opportunity to bring the community together and educate the community about what the whole city is. So I like that approach.
So I did list off 4, so it looks like we're adding another one with this technology and innovation priority. Is that best? And then in there, we're describing basically proliferation of technology in all the above priorities and the use of AI with pilots and just
Innovation.
Technology.
Yeah.
And how we do business and.
I like it having a little bit of a broad context of innovation, because then I think that actually goes to our transportation too. Like maybe there's new pavement that we can try out, and that falls under the innovation aspect. It doesn't just have to be AI. It can be new technologies that aren't digital based.
Right. Be an innovative city. I like that as a tagline to it,
Yeah.
to that
Okay.
priority.
So we're
You got
giving
it?
a menu of choices to the council that they can, it was free and that's what it was worth, right?
Yeah. Well, we've got 4.
I think we do.
We got 5 priorities.
Yeah, you got
so
5.
We're good.
Yep.
So
Appreciate
there we go.
the comments and input on that.
Okay, next item.
Yeah.
Great. At this time, I'd like to invite the commissioners and staff to provide their reports on activities and/or announcements.
I just was, well, I have one question and one recommendation for a future meeting is I would love to see what the parking revenue is at, what parking occupancy is at that's actually falls under the jurisdiction of this commission, and we haven't had any updates in a long time. So I would just, love to see what those numbers are, how we're doing. Somebody said the parking revenue is down. Okay, why? What are the numbers for that, right? And if we could have that at another meeting at the next one or two, that would be great. And then Smadar just stepped out, but I was going to ask, I know, and I referenced it in the town hall meetings, the work that was done in the woodlands and everything else. And I just wanted to see, Matt, maybe do you have an update on what are the next steps and where we're going? I would love to.
Do you guys want to finish yours, and then I'll do all my staff updates, and I'll include that.
I have nothing to report. Thank you.
I was recently in New Zealand and Australia and saw really cool ways that they did pedestrian, biking, and vehicle layouts. And they had signs that included scooters and bikes, which I thought was really inclusive. And as we talked earlier, wayfinding signs, it would be cool if it included both bikes and other micro mobility options. And so if anybody wants to see pictures, I can't really show them here in the council chamber, but I have cool pictures of how New Zealand and Australia do those things.
No announcements.
I don't have any announcements, but regarding the upcoming general plan, as we move closer to that, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how the city's approaching it and how we may or may not be involved. Thank you.
Ditto what she said. That's all I have.
So if I could provide mine. Yeah, in regard to the citrus, we've developed some concept plans for different improvements, and we hope to share those back with the neighborhood this month, early February, so that we can get their comments, and then we can go into a more detailed design and then move forward. So it's a bit of an outreach.
I was going to say the same thing. If you can keep us abreast of what those are directly, that would be appreciative as individuals.
And I was just going to ask, what was the method of communication you were going to use to go back to the neighborhood?
Yeah, so it was a series of outreach plans, including emails, as also possibly door-to-door information, flyers, and then possibly a gathering if we needed to. It depends on the cohesion of the neighbors and making sure that we're in agreement with what we're proposing. And if we need to have deeper discussions, then we can have a session. But we're excited for the plan. I think it addresses a lot of the issues that we've been hearing. And so, yeah, a few short weeks. Just on the grant side, I'll give 2 updates. We did apply for a MTC grant to receive funds for redesigning the California and Ignacio Valley Road intersection right near BART. This is in our CIP. Previously, it was unfunded. It has some TIF funds already allocated. And so this would help us complete the design, and then we would have plans ready for a future grant to help us construct it. And then more recently, this month, Brianna's focusing on some safety grants with OTS, Operation of Traffic Safety, or Office of Traffic Safety with California. And those funds would actually go towards the project that Rashad talked about tonight. So some additional funds for that $230,000 price tag on those projects. I'll leave it at that.
Great. I hereby adjourn the January 16th, 2025 regular meeting of the Transportation Commission. Our next regular meeting is March 20th, 2025.
Great job.
That was